Here we go. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, whoever's listening. Hello, Arabella.
Hi, Remo.
Glad to have you on. I've been waiting for this for a while.
It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm very honored to have been asked.
Yeah, I thought it's natural to get this ball rolling for the symposium with ourselves. I know everyone enjoys talking about themselves, but I think we should actually we own this to our audience, that we introduce ourselves and start the discussion. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say and what our members or our core team has to say about these issues themselves. So yeah, this will be part interview, part discussion perhaps, and this is how I like to do my podcasts anyway. I thought I'd start with asking how you came to this field, and I'm not entirely sure what the field is, so please tell me. What are you actually studying in university, and what's your, let's say, I don't know, niche or interest or topic?
Okay, so I'm doing a PhD in philosophy, cosmology, and consciousness. It's an intrinsically transdisciplinary integral degree that merges various fields of study. My academic background is in English literature. Okay, so the canon of English literature, which was very, very informative for me and continues to be so. Indeed, poetry and poetics is a fundamental aspect of what I'm studying now. I'm English, as you can probably tell. I grew up in London. I did my undergrad at Bristol and then my master's at UCL. The university I'm doing my PhD in is based in San Francisco. It's called the California Institute of Integral Studies. So it has an integral approach. And this is important, what I'm saying, because it will feed into our later discussion around the worldview, around the planetary crisis we find ourselves in, and how we as a species can evolve.
Yes.
So I'm a philosopher, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker. And I suppose I'm positioning myself as a voice in this generation, a new paradigm navigator in the same ilk as someone like Terence McKenna, Aldous Huxley. I say that with humility. They are their own people, but it's very much that revolutionary spirit that I feel, that I embody. I'm my own person, and we're living at a particular time now, which I would suggest is more urgent than the counterculture of the 1960s. I feel like that was a foreshadowing of what's happening now.
Yeah.
We live in times of prophecy. It's the end of the Mayan calendar, the beginning of the age of Aquarius, and the beginning of the Satya Yuga. I don't think it's a coincidence that all these different traditions prophesize this time right now. And that's what I want people to realize and be inspired by, is the time is now. This is one of the most exciting, important, critical times in human history, if not the most.
And it is. Even if you don't consider any prophecies or any ancient traditions, me being alive every day, I hear some news or look at the opportunities we have, at what I can do, at what's my feet. It's crazy. I'm so happy to be alive at this time. Like, even if everything does fuck up brutally, even if the planet gets blown to smithereens, I will be happy as hell having lived around this time. I would rather not, of course. I'd rather hold this sacred cradle of life in one piece. But yeah, CIIS, so the university you study in, is it right to call it university, or is it a bigger institute?
I call it a university. I call it a university because I'm English, but in America they would call it a college.
All right. For me, it's a place I'd like to study one day myself. I think it's the place one of the places where transpersonal psychology began, or one of the first official places.
It did. Stanislav Grof.
Yeah. So I'm already excited. I'm already excited to hear what's going on there and what's it like studying there. Are you studying like from distance, or
At the moment, I just started. I've had my first semester, but I've been working on my research and considering my research for almost 5 years now, which goes into my story. CIIS is it's incredible. It's like coming home. I found my people. I'd initially wanted to do a PhD at Cambridge, and I got rejected. And then when I was rejected from Cambridge, I moved to Costa Rica because there was nothing for me here in this country. Before I get into my story, though, I do just want to specify what I'm studying and what my research pertains to. It's specifically around consciousness, and the study of consciousness. And my life mission, or like a core component of my life mission, is to incontrovertibly change the scientific paradigm, which is still somehow based on reductionist materialism. It's just erroneous. It's categorically wrong. As far as I'm concerned, it is now dangerous. It is impeding human evolution. The science of mainstream scientists like Richard Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson needs to be shut down ASAP. All the evidence points towards a conscious, intelligent cosmos that is ever evolving, which is co-creative, which is participatory, which knows about us. The science points toward a higher power. I don't want to call it God because it transcends what we could ever possibly codify in words, but it's alive and intelligent, and it's benevolent, and it's personal, and it's intrinsically aesthetic and beautiful. So my research is combining consciousness studies with poetry and poetics, higher dimensional mathematics, and quantum physics. I'm hoping to provide an integral ontology of time that deconstructs the erroneous notion of unidirectional, linear, irreversible time. That's entropy. That's not the full scope of what time is. I suggest a paradigm of reverse causality, that the future is already destined, that the universe is evolving into ever greater manifestations of beauty in this material dimension, and that indeed the entire universe is like a harmonic cosmic symphony resonating on multiple dimensions. That would speak to string theory. And we're here to bring this lowest octave of the cosmic symphony into harmonic resonance with the other dimensions. Most of the universe is non-physical. Aliens are real. They know about us, and they've been here for a long time. I could continue.
Please do.
Okay, well, aesthetics is really, really important for me. Aesthetics is the study of beauty. I believe that beauty is a pathway to experiencing the divine, and is proof that the divine is real. Evolutionary biology will never, ever be able to explain why beauty exists, because it doesn't pertain to survival in any way, shape, or form. The fact that we experience awe still now when we behold the starry night sky. I mean, you have to have something you have to be really deficient to not feel awe when you look up at the stars. There's something amiss there if you don't feel that. Whether you're secular or religious doesn't matter. Because humans, our consciousness has evolved enough not to project a story onto the cosmos, but to perceive what is intrinsically there. Because consciousness evolves and evolves to perceive what is there. It's not that we make up a little story to make sense of it. It's because what actually makes sense is the truth of an alive, intelligent cosmos. And when we behold that level of ineffable mystery and profundity, we feel what's known as awe. The aesthetic experience when one listens to a Beethoven quartet, when one reads superlative poetry, or beholds, a beautiful sunset, this sublime experience can never be contextualized within a mechanistic reductionist paradigm. And science robs us of not only of the aesthetic experience, but the true meaning, the depth of cosmic meaning that resides therein. And, so I think reductionist science is also robbing people of a deeper, enriched experience of life, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if we synthesize science and spirituality, we transcend all religious dogma, we transcend all religious separation, we become one humanity on this planet and part of an interconnected nexus of intelligent life in the universe. Do you know how much better life becomes when you live in that vibration? It is so much better there.
Yeah, we have no idea. We have no idea.
That's what I'm pushing for.
Well, listening to, I just read the one manifesto of Maslow, where he speaks similarly that science has kind of bloodied, our awe and interest in the natural world. Let's say that when he was in medical schools, it was considered an sort of a like initiation for a doctor to disseminate the body and not feel anything. It was kind of, it was bad to feel. Well, and I do understand it. When you are becoming a doctor and you need to work with trauma, you kind of need to forget that it is another living being, that it is a mystery that you are operating upon. When you're dealing with childbirth or when you have to save another human's life, I understand, because at those critical situations, like it can be debatable somewhat, but if you are really lost in emotions, like you need to make cold and fast decisions in those situations. And I feel that the part of, let's say, evolution in science has, or like the developmental stage of science has been that we learn to work with the objective world. We learn to work with trauma in medicine. This first very cold and very reductionistic, as you say, approach has served us, but also has been, how do you say?
It's run its course.
Yes, it's run its course.
Yeah.
I do feel so too.
Listen, I completely agree with everything you said, and I don't demonize materialism insofar as, and I also people need to understand what materialism is. It's not about being consumerist, although it's obviously related. It's the argument, the scientific argument that this is a physical universe, and matter is the kind of primary reality. So just to be really clear about that. That emerged, really Copernicus in the 15th century was the first initiatory like movement towards that. Away from a more holistic kind of medieval, like transdisciplinary approach, which, in itself was kind of limited, but it was more holistic. With that, after that came Galileo, came Newton, came René Descartes, the mind-body split. And suddenly, this is called the scientific revolution, right? It lasted about kind of 150 years.
Do you also know that the scientific revolution actually, like the Renaissance, was preceded by mystical thinking in Islam? That actually the Greece philosophers were first rediscovered by Islamic cultures, and from there they were translated so that Europeans could actually access them. Our churches could actually start translating them, and that's what sparked the Renaissance and later scientific revolution.
Fascinating. I didn't know that. I do know that the Middle East in the 12th, 13th centuries was highly evolved and sophisticated, and mathematics and so on.
Yes.
But I wasn't directly aware of the relationship between the discovery of antiquity and how that fit into the Italian
because we are taught about this, dark ages, like 1,000 years of darkness, and it's true in terms of Europe, I guess, but it wasn't true in terms of other parts of the world. There was something in those dark ages going on also. It's just that this...
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
China had fireworks and paper.
Yeah.
We're taught a Eurocentric paradigm. I was taught about the Tudors and Henry VIII about 10 times. I mean, I literally, like, 1 week on that would have been enough, you know, and to go back to an integral worldview and what that means and this new paradigm we are birthing, it needs to integrate every culture, every religion, every viewpoint thus been articulated and synthesize them in a way that creates something new. This is the Hegelian dialectic. So Hegel, who's an 18th century German philosopher, German idealist, I mean, really amazing, prescient thinker. He argued for a particular philosophical dialectic, which involves a thesis, an antithesis, and then the synthesis. So religion, organized religion is a thesis, materialist science is the antithesis. Now we bring them together and we get something entirely new. And that's where we're at now, this critical threshold where somehow, and I think I do know the reason why we have scientists and thinkers and a worldview that's still based on materialism. It's holding on for dear life. You know, the US government, for example, knows full well how consciousness works. They know full well extraterrestrials are here. They know full well. They suppress this information because if people become empowered, people wake up and have a mystical enlightenment and wake up to the true nature of reality. You no longer have little cogs in the machine. You no longer have anesthetized, desensitized people to fuel the furnace of consumer capitalism on which our whole world is founded and which is an illusion. Debt-based capitalism has to stop. I mean, I'm not saying capitalism entirely or our fiscal systems entirely have to be thrown out. You know, I don't have enough economic wherewithal to really suggest the new economic systems right now in this moment. I just know that what we're currently doing is run its course. The monopoly game has also reached its apogee or its nadir, conversely. It's kind of both. It's a kind of low point and a high point for this iteration of reality. But it's done, though. It's like, ciao, 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 ciao. Joe Biden, like, settle down. Like, whoever the fuck the English Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, like, go away. Whoever the Chinese president is, go away. Patriarchy, go away. Go away. You suck. Like, you've had your go. You've had your little go. You know, you're not doing very well. You've destroyed and are destroying the planet. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that pretty much all of our world leaders, or the majority, you know, a lot of people who are at the top of industries like banking are sociopaths. They're men and they're sociopaths. And I'm fucking over it. This is the return, this is the revival of the Eleusinian mysteries of high priestesses and the feminine principle running the world. This is what's happening now. We are rebirthing feminine power, largely women, but also, of course, men. It's about the feminine principle. It's men and women leading equally. It's not power over, it's men and women running equally. A very strong female presence, I think, is required in positions of outward-facing power. That it's a whole different principle and way of being that's holistic, grounded in the earth. It's sexual, it's delicious, it's beautiful, it's interconnected. People can't handle this shit right now. People they're scared of it. They're scared of the power of it.
Well, it has to do with creativity also and responsibility.
Yes.
And I think for me as a therapist, what I see most is that we really need to face our shadows. It's shadow work that needs to be done. Like if I look at my life, if I look at individual lives, what really affects people the most is their unresolved past, is their skeletons in the cupboard. You know, we can grasp this with our minds. We know this in our hearts. But what's really stopping us is the guilt we have, the pain we have, the wounds we have.
Yeah. And
that
the
make
fear.
us, and fear.
The fear, the lack of courage to actually face it, to look at it square in the face and say, yeah, this is it. This is the shadow of the human psyche. But it's also our collective shadow of patriarchy. Do you know, when I say, I often have this as a person who's very vocal on the dissolution of the patriarchy, I trigger myself, even some of the shit I say. because I'm like, oh, I don't want to alienate people. I don't want to alienate men. People, they're like, you're so aggressive with what you're saying. I'm like, I'm really sorry, but the patriarchy does need to burn to the motherfucking ground. I'm not demonizing men. I'm demonizing patriarchal hegemony, which is a societal structure. And people get triggered by that because it's so dark. It's so dark what's come out of it. Trafficking, pornography, rape, all the oppressive regimes against women. For us to face this together, it terrifies people, men and women. It's terrifying because it's so dark. And really what needs to happen is that we all need to have a good cry. We all need to come together and have a good cry about it, and a surrendering where we say, it's okay. It happened and it's happening. It's okay. We all have a shadow. We all, men and women, have participated in patriarchy and colonialism and these dark genocidal, fucked up things.
Yeah, I think it's war, aggression and violence and killing and suffering.
Yeah, and it's oppression and it's power over. Because I love what you just said when I was speaking about the kind of erotic, aesthetic dimension of reality. This is what I write about a lot as well, is about eros and how it emerges in art. What you use the word responsibility, and that's bang on, because what's required of us now, if we are going to grow the fuck up and birth a new paradigm, is responsibility and maturity. With great power comes great responsibility.
What I like about
a new structure of consciousness. Sorry, go on.
What I like about responsibility is that, and what I don't like about it is that we are taught really wrong. We're really, really miseducated about responsibility. We are, from our school systems and from our parents and their parents, we are taught this, top down, like finger wagging way that, you need to get your shit together. You need to do this. You need to do that. Like, we are made to feel like it's like we have no choice, or like this is, and it's right too. Yeah. But the problem with that is that actually we want it ourselves. We need it ourselves. We want to feel needed. We need to feel useful existentially. We need to have a reason for our existence.
We need to belong.
And to belong as well, yeah. Yeah, well, that's what comes out of it. Like when we're talking about, or like I am talking about, I'm in the field of transpersonal. We're talking about transpersonal experiences, so transpersona. So that's to go beyond your ego. I think we don't need to talk even about mystical experiences. We don't need to go into voodoo or metaphysics, although that's my shit. I dig it. I can go there for hours and for days. But we don't even need to go there. Like, to transcend your ego, is to take care of your partner, is to care for your children, is to teach, other people, is to be nice to each other, is to take care. We are mammals. We are mammals as humans.
Identity. I do think people need an identity, though, which is why look at football. Look at football, how people go crazy for their team. To be in a stadium of 80,000 people, we crave experiences like that.
Yeah,
being with
flow.
A massive community of people united under an identity. Part of my story is I grew up feeling very othered. I don't want to go too much into my personal story, but my father was a sociopath, and I have a different father to my brothers, and there was a huge identity crisis for me growing up, involved in feeling like an exile outcast with no home, less than, full of shame, awful. And I think this need to belong and feel safe is within all of us. And it's why you get this kind of nationalist patriotism. Look at people in America. They're like obsessed with America because the best country in the world. I'm like, excuse me. This is literally stolen land. Like, let's just remember what's really going on. But it's because people need it, and it's okay. And I think we shouldn't shun this. And it does extend beyond the nuclear family. We're supposed to live in community, Remo. We're not supposed to live in nuclear families away from community. We're supposed to live in an interconnected, sort of intentional environment. And I think this is really critical to the new earth. And I am actually an ambassador for a project, a proud ambassador of a project called Honeydew, which is the word itself is taken from Samuel Taylor Coleridge, his poem Kubla Khan, which is a fragment from an opium dream. I mean, this whole new reality is so psychedelic. The ethos is so psychedelic, I can't tell you. It's so exciting. and Honeydew is a network of interconnected, intentional, eco-based communities that speak to a new paradigm of consciousness that is stewarding in the architecture of a new earth that will give a place for people when they have awakenings or they have psychedelic experiences, like, or holotropic experiences, transpersonal experiences. One of the most traumatic things about having those kind of experiences is that you're then still in this fucked up world where other people aren't awake and you can't integrate your experience, right?
Yeah, alienation.
But how can you continue living in this society? That's why I moved to Costa Rica to the jungle. I was like, I cannot look at people in McDonald's. I cannot witness Black Friday sale. Like, what the fuck, dude?
It's really nice though.
No.
It's really nice though. You get to blow up all your money, all your savings. You get to buy shit, to have this material wealth. You're wealthier than, like, any of us are wealthier than pharaohs 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago. We're richer than kings.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. The thing is, I'm pro luxury. This is what is also a bit of a dichotomy, which I would like people to integrate now and understand. I'm pro beauty. I'm pro luxury. I'm pro fucking nice things. What I'm not pro is industrialized production of cheap shit. I think we should return to artisanal, local craftsmanship.
I agree.
Not thinking you have to have everything now, and not thinking you have to have it all. Have fewer, nicer things.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
Let's celebrate beauty. Let's celebrate superlative art and velvet and loveliness and beautiful architecture.
Hey, woman.
Everyone, no matter how rich or poor you are, has the right to live in beauty. And look, it keeps people stuck in lower socioeconomic statuses because they get put in tower blocks in tiny little spaces, which is hell. I'm sorry, I don't care if this triggers anyone. No human is supposed to live like that. It's not fair. It's not okay. What I'm promoting is a utopian reality where we all get to live in bliss and beauty and we're on a level fucking playing field. Sorry, I keep swearing in this podcast. Sorry,
you're
I
very passionate and emotional. That's really fine by me. I hope it's fine by any older listeners too, but
good. Well, it better be. It better be.
But I agree. You know, one of my bigger dreams is one day to have or be a part of a guild. In a medieval sense, a guild of masters, of artisans, of handicrafters. You know, I really like handicrafts. Not so much that I would be doing it myself for the rest of my life. No, but I would like to be a part of a community that's really focused on mastery and beauty and, you know, etching your soul into material reality. You know, one day I was in Spain, I was looking at these old cathedrals there, even churches, even smaller ones. And they're etched in stone. And it got me thinking, like, why the fuck would humans do that? Like, why? Like, these are stones. They are like hard rocks. And they have carved with years of their lives, like tens years. You know, like these cathedrals, some are made for 8 centuries. You know, like thousands and thousands of people have devoted their lives to that thing. Yeah. Like, why would they?
Yeah, many generations. Yeah.
And at one of them that was like really carved in stone, there were like, you know, like it's a medieval style, but it goes way back. It was like natural, like plant-like motifs were carved into stone. And I was thinking about it, like, hey, what's up here? Like, well, okay, one thing is that stone lasts, right? But I was looking deeper and I was thinking that, okay, we are carving life into stone. We are carving beauty and like we're trying to make inanimate animate. So we are putting soul in soulless, so to say.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. I love your perspective and your sensitivity to this. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what I realized. perhaps it's not all, but yeah, we are trying to, bring this matter alive or beautify it.
You know what? When you say, I don't know if that was just a rhetorical question you posed of why these people were doing it and dedicating their whole lives to, why, right?
Well, I have some ideas, but
Okay.
I would like to hear your perspective.
Because it was in service of the divine, because it was a connection to the divine. Not only that, creative expression is divine. Hence why, artists, musicians create art. It doesn't need to be for religious reasons. Why are we compelled to create art? What survival function does that serve? Oh, evolutionary biologist? None. Why
It attracts you to the right mate. You get to have it attracts you the right mate.
Are you being ironic?
Yeah. But it's true too.
I'm so sincere. I find it really hard to tell when people are being dry. I've got loads of friends that wind me up. They're being really like, you know what I mean? Like dry humor. I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, exactly. That's why aesthetics and beauty and great art is divine. That's why you can sit in front of a Rothko or read Shakespeare and have a numinous, noetic experience, because you are the universe witnessing its own creativity. We are the universe. Everything's fractal. It's a hologram. Our imagination is the imagination of the cosmos on a micro level. So when we experience beauty, when we create, we are literally the cosmic mind. We are God experiencing itself through us, remembering its own nature all over again. How beautiful is that? How enchanted and magical is that? Because God is Alpha and Omega. God is light. It's the mind of light. It's outside of space and time. You understand? Light is outside of space and time. Every time you see a fire or a flame, or the sun, the sunlight isn't taking 8 minutes to travel. The light isn't taking 8 minutes. We perceive it because it's traveling through the physical dimension, and therefore it slows it down, and our perception perceives it like that. Do you understand? Like that's what we're dealing with here. That's the shit people need to be taught in schools. When you look at the sun, you're looking at neural nodes of the mind of God. And we are also part of this panoply of cosmic intelligence and cosmic unfoldment and soul. As you said, this is an ensouled cosmos. Even inanimate matter, rock, like water and rocks, it has mind. It's all a mind. You can't say, well, this is conscious and that isn't. We're self-aware. We have self-reflexive consciousness because we've evolved. I mean, but rocks and water and so on and so forth, and wind, it's all part of the kind of the dream-like backdrop, which is a mind.
I want to share two answers too. First one is, maybe I'm a little bit attached still to the evolutionary story, which is a powerful story, spiral dynamics. I like to think, and this is from Krish Page's book and experiences with LSD.
LSD in the mind of the universe.
Yeah.
I just quoted that in an essay I'm writing.
It's great. And what I like about it the most is that, and I like this theory that we are baby gods who have been gifted a sandbox to learn to create. But to create, we have been given a canvas. But here, everything is slowed down. So in a sense, we are protected. When we imagine something, it isn't created simultaneously.
Immediately,
and we get to feel and reap what we sow. In a sense, we get to feel and experience the consequences of our creation, whether it works or doesn't. And that goes, whether we are building a house or whether we are making a civilization. It's all the same, whether it's individual or collective. So this is one answer. Second answer is more personal. When we talk about like why are people devoting themselves to God or building a church, let's say, or for art, or for beauty for that matter, or truth. And my particular answer so far is from my own experience. One of my deepest, trips or takeaways has been that I felt at the bottom of my being, I felt that as long as I could love, I'm willing to play. As long as I could love, I'm willing to go there. And that took me deep. That replaced my inner core. And it's hard to put into words, but
you just have, though.
You
just have put it into words, and very beautifully and very elegantly.
Yeah, and I feel like, building these churches or doing this art, it's actually to feel yourself, birthing something beautiful, or feel yourself, loving something with your whole being, with your whole life, with your, sacrificing yourself to something beautiful. And that, I guess, reminds your soul, or that has a value of reminding your soul something way deeper that you could ever find in this, consumerism or just blatant, enjoyment, satiation.
Well, it's hedonism kind of.
Yeah, hedonism, and I'm not against hedonism.
But not even. It's worse than that. But listen, what you've just said, and the way you said it, and the sort of the pace at which you said it, I'm so moved by what you've said, and I couldn't agree more. And I sort of feel I can get a bit frenetic, because I have so much information I'm trying to disseminate. But you've just articulated it so simply. And what I loved when you said, so long as I'm able to love, I'm willing to play.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why that's so profound? And there's so much meaning embedded in that, because you use the word play. And I believe this is an intrinsically ludic, playful cosmos. It's a game. We're playing a game. And from what I'm taking from that is that because we are able to love, the sensation, the feeling, the state of being that love is what makes it all worthwhile. Because life can be really hard. It can be really painful, so painful that you don't want to live anymore. And I have been there more times than I can say, where I literally did not want to be here, because I found existence so insufferable, so painful, I felt so alienated and so confused. I just didn't want to be here. But it is that capacity to experience the divine and to love and be loved in return that makes it worthwhile. And that's why love is a courageous act, of the vulnerability. And it's, exactly, it's a game, and it's multidimensional, and the dimensions are unfolded within and without kind of each other. And that's why time exists. And you nailed that as well. When you said you nailed it, dude. It's about the unfoldment. In other dimensions, you can manifest immediately, think, and it's there. When we think about stuff and we put our conscious attention on stuff, you will manifest it. Whether you know it or not. It's because it's a video game hologram. You're sort of shaping your physical reality through your consciousness.
And I find it's getting faster and faster in time.
It's
speeding up.
The spiral we're getting closer to the point of the spiral. And that's why the archetypal astrology of our situation and the Mayan time and everything I said before, that, the prophetic times, it's because the spiral, the temporal spiral is quickening. And, in terms of time's existence, my argument as an integral philosopher and as someone studying cosmology and quantum mechanics and time,
I wanted to ask about that anyway.
Time exists, entropy exists, because unidirectional time is entropy, which is true. Like, if you break an egg, you can't unbreak it. We're all gonna wither and perish. Like, that's happening. That's our material. That's the material realm. That's not consciousness. Consciousness is quantum and non-local. Our consciousness is going into superposition 10 to the 37 times a second. This is the work of Roger Penrose, who's been studying the brain and the mathematical processes of consciousness.
Although he doesn't like to admit any metaphysical
he's a bit, it's sad because I'm like, Roger, why is it diminishing your theory if it's metaphysical? It's because he would be admonished by his peers.
I guess
and
so,
the
yeah.
academic, the academy, the establishment, which is going down. But so time, the experience of time, it's, first of all, time's subjective. What even is time? It's sure as hell not the ticking of the clock. That's the measurement of time. It's far more intricate and sophisticated than our current paradigm allows for.
Do you think?
Go out and ask. Go on.
Do you think time has a substance?
I think it's dimensional. My argument is that it's hyperbolic. Hyperbolic means higher dimensional. So if someone listening to this now goes on the internet and types in Hopf vibration, HOPF, what you'll see is this spiraling shape in 3 dimensions. But what it is a 4-dimensional shape reduced into 3 dimensions. We can't imagine higher dimensions because we live in 3. We literally can't really imagine it. So I argue that time, like imaginary time, for example, which is a thing, it's like a mathematical realm that's totally required for applied mathematics. These are different orders of time happening in different orders of reality that are non-physical and archetypal, and then beyond that. So time is a geometric object, if you will. This is a geometric cosmos of many dimensions, like string theory of 11 dimensions. It's a musical, crystalline geometry, and we're living in 1 dimension of time, which is entropic. Hence why our consciousness can go back to places in time, but we can't physically go back to different times. But in our mind, we can. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so. When I've been in all the states, and actually here I'm not meaning any drug-induced states. One of my practices has been bioenergetics. I have been away from it for a few years now that I've been in studies, but I have been in, and now it's hard to put it into English because I have been learning it in Russian and Estonian mostly.
Wow.
But when my consciousness has been activated, let's say, there are way better words, but I can't think of them right now. When my consciousness has been activated or aroused is a better word.
Yeah, sure.
I have been able to expand my consciousness in a room, for starters. So let's say I could, when a sound happens in a room, I don't any longer feel this sound, coming from somewhere and arriving at me in my ear, wherever. I feel that sound is happening inside me, within me. I feel myself as the whole room wherein the sound is moving. This is one example. Another is that in that arousal, it's also super inspiring state. Like you could, if you choose to, move it into creativity, like all of these, music, all of these anthems start playing in your mind. Like everything is starts realizing. But another example is I can move within time as well. To your argument that, let's say example, I ate something, something a sweet, and I ate it, and an hour has passed, and I realized that I can go back to the exact taste and experience I had while eating it and repeat it into infinity if I want to. I could fulfill myself from one time eating this thing an hour ago, or even, years ago, it might be. And this is our consciousness.
Correct. And the neural structures are the same as when you had the first experience.
I guess so.
Right? Yeah, no, they are. They know that. I mean, the farther away a memory is, you start reconstructing it. You may reconstruct it, which is why memory can be it's not infallible, right? But listen, consciousness is the next frontier, and This is what materialist science can't answer. And there's people, I respect a lot of mainstream scientists. Like I respect Richard Dawkins. I respect Anil Seth, who sort of emerged as like, a new voice on consciousness. And it upsets me because what he's saying isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
He says that our brain like hallucinates reality and there's no meaning to it. And I'm like, no. Consciousness is the only reality. The illusion is the physicality. One of my favorite quotes is from Max Planck, the esteemed quantum physicist of the earlier 20th century. I'm going to paraphrase a quote he said at the final lecture he gave in 1943, which is, he said, I've been studying matter my whole life, 40 years or so, and all I can tell you is that matter doesn't exist as such. It is held together by a force or an energy, which we can only call a mind, and this is the matrix of all matter. Matter is an illusion. It's 99.99999% empty. And consciousness, our consciousness can travel through time. It can travel through the universe. It is so multiplicitous and multivalent and powerful because this is a conscious universe. Our imagination is so powerful and we create our reality, as we've already mentioned. And when people realize this, when this becomes the paradigm, I mean, we don't even know what's going to happen, like what we could create. Imagine humanity coming together and creating together with a unified intention. Wow. That's how utopia will be created.
Yeah, and those 0.999s are only as many as precise our tools are. There are gonna be only more 0.999s as our technology evolves. That's the thing. So let's say the 0.0000001 that is supposed to be matter, that is our hope actually. That is our theory.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Nonsense. This is exactly where we arrive with, we're going back to like Vedanta or like Buddhist thought that, matter is empty. It is all emptiness, actually. There is nothing but emptiness. It's just that our tools allow us to say that, okay, we are sure that 99.99999% are empty. This is what we can agree on. These are what our tools say to us.
What I would say is that it's not actually empty. It just appears empty. It's a plenum. It's what David Bohm calls the plenum. I argue that David Bohm is a more interesting, important scientist than Albert Einstein. Einstein just got really he became a bit of a poster boy, I think, for science. I mean, he's amazing, but David Bohm, so to give you a kind of contextualized Bohm, he died quite recently. I think he died in the 90s, maybe early noughties. His doctoral research got confiscated by the US government. Oppenheimer was his supervisor, and his doctorate got taken to make the atomic bomb. It was actually, it was his discovery. I mean, he didn't want that to happen, but it was confiscated. That's how important he is. His cosmology speaks to what he calls an implicate order. So the deeper level of reality is the implicate. Like that's the mind of God, and everything you see around you is in this continuous fractal feedback loop. Information going back into the implicate, information coming out, going back in. And when you look up, when he said, when you look up at the starry night sky, the velvet cloak of night, it's not empty space. It's the cosmic mind. There is more information in a cubic centimeter of ostensible empty space than the entire material universe. Get your head around that. Matter is 4% of the known universe. There is no proof, after 100 years of hypothesizing dark matter and dark energy, there is still no tangible evidence of them existing, but yet they continue to be purported because they fit into the materialist paradigm. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Just stop it. Grow up.
Yeah. This, my only reasons for it continuing to exist is simply, money.
Yeah.
Money
Yeah.
and
Greed.
Serving the few instead of the many.
correct? Service to self. That's the polarity. It's really simple. Service to self, service to other. Right?
Mm-hmm.
When you move into service to self, you know, and you have a cosmic mission, you're no longer just hankering after your own needs, because why can't everyone's needs be met? Why can't we all win? We can. This is an abundant planet. It's an abundant cosmos.
Yes.
It's just the retardation and the selfishness of the elite, tiny elite, who have the money and who have the power, who don't want to share it because they want to keep the control for themselves. Because, you know, the human psyche is very corruptible. And we see this mythologically depicted time and time again. It's like Tolkien, you know, The Lord of the Rings, how the power of the ring corrupts people and changes them, and right? It's an age-old sort of mythic narrative that we now need to transcend.
Well, one story I like to spun also is that it has been a phase.
Correct.
And it seems to me, and this might be wrong, but it seems to me that at one point in history, we did not have a individuated consciousness. We can call it ego, but I think it's actually deeper than that. I think ego is just a part of it. And you know, and this, like, again, like we can go into it without even going into metaphysics. I like Jordan Peterson, for example. He's not deep enough.
No, we disagree. No, he needs to go down.
Anyways, I've been using one of his arguments that that our consciousness as humans is not bounded. Well, that's for sure for us, but not for, let's say, materialist thinkers. Our consciousness is not bounded, or even our personality is not bounded to our physical being, meaning that we cannot actually think and we cannot actually perceive and we don't actually have an identity without communicating with other persons. In a sense, we are like these little Wi-Fi routers or antennas that are constantly beaming out. And when we get these reflections back, we are understanding that, oh, okay, this is where I am, this is what I am, this is what I do. So we are constantly like beaming out and getting reflections from other people. And that's the same with thinking. We cannot, and well, you can be trained, but it's actually extremely hard to think by ourselves. And even when we do think by ourselves, we are constructing these imaginary avatars who are talking amongst themselves. So we need dialogue to think, actually. And where I'm getting to with this is that at one point in our history, well, before this one point in history, we were living as communities because we weren't individualized. We weren't, thinking that we are, this one person or this one being with these wishes and these material possessions and these ambitions and whatever. But then at one point, this process of individuation started, where we started constructing ourselves, our personas, our egos, and well, my essays go into this, really like trying to dig up how our ego, how our persona was constructed and why. And my, let's say, little theory is that it all started with urbanization, because when we were living in small villages, and it goes into neurology as well, when we were living in little communities, we didn't need to have egos, because everyone got along. Like, your problems were my problems, your happiness was my happiness. But
can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
When you say communities, you're talking Paleolithic, yeah? You're not talking about Neolithic agricultural societies, because I would argue that there was a lot of bloodshed and tribal identity already at that point.
Yeah. Well, I think tribalism was before that too, but it's very simple. Like this limit of people goes, I think, like 150 or 250.
Sure.
And the point is there that this is the number of people and their interrelationships we can mathematically comprehend.
Hold.
Yeah. like if we are living in a community up to 150 people, and it's seen in in business as well, that companies up to this a number of people actually function because you can comprehend the dynamics between the people there. And my theory is that when we actually went into cities and agriculturalism started, and we went over these numbers, then we started needing an ego, because what ego for me is a simplification. It's like, let's take social, Facebook or whatever, like these technologies, for example. What these are like, what's the word? In YouTube, you have videos and then you have one like picture of the video. Thumbnail.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Thumbnail is the word I was looking for. Yeah. So these like social media is like a thumbnail of our personality. There's like the picture of me, what I like, what I'm, where I studied, what I do. So this is like a massive simplification, a low resolution image of what I am. And I think in a bigger picture, this is what ego is. So ego is a massive like simplification and a filter for people, because when we were living in communities, we actually deeply and intimately knew each other. But nowadays world, you don't even know your neighbor, because it's impossible. You see, when you're living in a big city, you see more than 1,000 new people every day who you are never going to see again. It's just mathematically impossible to know anyone. And this is why we have constructed these egos to simplify the world. These thumbnails, these, shots.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jean Gebser, The Ever-Present Origin.
I have heard the name, but I haven't read the book, I guess.
I would argue my problem with Jordan Peterson is, when I said he needs to go down, sorry, I don't want to be negative, and I guess I'm saying that in a tongue-in-cheek way. I do believe his ideology and the information he disseminates to be quite dangerous, very much speaking to toxic masculinity. I don't really think he has the academic authority to be speaking about these sorts of issues. He doesn't get it. He's a materialist. He relies way too much on evolutionary biology. I just don't have time for it. And I don't have time for people who appeal to disenfranchised men when the misogyny and the patriarchal paradigm that exists is the most important thing for us to be tackling. So I think he's serving his own, he knows what he's doing, and he's intelligent, and he uses a rhetoric, and I don't like it. I don't like it. So that's why, let's get that out of the way. The second thing is Jean Gebser's Structures of Consciousness. I think he wrote this I don't know when he wrote it, 30s, let's say. He spoke about the archaic structure of consciousness, which would have been like, Paleolithic, like literally the emergence of language, like that level of consciousness, right? So interconnected. Then you have the magical, which would be a bit later down the trajectory of, living in caves, more developed stories, cave art. Yeah, but very magical. Like imagine, like you said, living in a band of like 30 people, hunter-gatherers, they would have, everything was animist. One can only speculate how they experience reality.
Yeah, it's understandable, because like then you had to be not only very intimately related to each other, but also very intimately related to the nature to actually survive. You had to understand thoroughly, every plant and every place.
No distractions, so present. Probably their life felt as long as ours, even though it was more like 30 years old, 35 years old, because they were present every second of the day. So after the magical, you have the mythic. So you see that in obviously ancient civilizations, Egypt, the Hellenic, Roman tradition. And then you have the mental, which is where we are now. It's a mental structure of consciousness that is delimiting and confining us. The next structure is the integral structure, which is the structure we need to move into, which is what synthesizes all of those structures and creates something new. Excuse me.
Yeah, I like these structuralist views. I find them integrating. I find them, modeling and making it easier to understand. At the same time, I'm totally unsure well, up to a point, I believe they are fair. But from another angle, I'm not sure if it's, like if really our fantasies to guide us, it could be that we had insanely developed ancient civilizations that we have no idea about. Perhaps that
we did though. We did. Well, I believe that aliens built the pyramids.
Yeah. I mean, we have signs. We have signs, and we know there were civilized people, but perhaps there were also civilizations that were so civilized that we can't even imagine it. Like not just civilized. That's just a word. Developed, let's say, or.
I do believe that.
Yeah.
I do believe that. What Gene Gebbs's approach, it's a pathway. Mm-hmm. I don't read I'm not someone to latch on to like someone else's theory and be like, yeah, this is it. I'm not really that kind of person. I've always been a bit too rebellious and sort of headstrong. I just look at, different ones that resonate. Same. And see it's an interesting pathway of understanding. I do think we're in a sort of mental structure. I think that's quite useful. Mm-hmm. But like you said, and, I like your thinking, how do we even really know? I don't believe in the timeline being given to us by archaeologists. I know it's not true because I have had direct experiences with extraterrestrials in the physical, not on drugs. I'm talking UFOs, them coming off their ship, shape-shifting in front of us, walking on the ocean. And I know this will be a lot for people to hear right now. I don't care.
Of course, drop the bomb. Of course, drop the bomb 2 minutes before we have to conclude it.
People need to know ASAP because they're coming. Them integrating, us becoming part of an interconnected, intergalactic civilization is the next frontier. I don't care if this is too much for people. I know that there's tons of people when I've said this, they just think you're crazy. I don't care.
Actually,
I know these beings. They helped create the pyramids. They had technology around frequency. It was other kinds of advanced technology that wasn't mechanical. They were working with the laws of the universe and the nature of reality in a very different way. So, people, it's a lot. And it's a gradual path of awakening to get to the place where you can understand what I've just said, because it's so outside of what we've been conditioned to believe. Too much for people. Understandable.
What you just said was basically my research work in high school. I went and looked for, evidence in literature that would deconstruct our materialist mainstream paradigm, and UFOs and pyramids were a big part of it.
Yeah, big time. The thing is, we should probably end in a minute because I have a deadline that I need to work on. But the thing is that when you accept this reality, about the ETs, about other modes of advanced civilization preceding our own, life becomes so much cooler. It's so much better and more jokes and interesting than what we're being taught right now. It's like, what kind of life do you want to lead? Do you want to live a really boring one where all you do is get a job and pay a mortgage? Yeah. And you live in your little safety comfort zone. Boring. And you pay tax to the government. Sorry. No, I just can't. I just don't want to grapple with this reality anymore, other than my mission of dismantling it, basically.
A woman.
Thank you. I love that you say that.
All right.
So thank you. Thank you for giving me this space to articulate some of my ideas. And I'm grateful to you and thank you.
Yeah, and I hope we only attracted our audience. I hope we didn't scare anyone away, and whoever we did, then that's that. We're gonna keep with an interesting punch here.
Whoever was meant to hear that, would have heard it. I really believe that the people listening right now are meant to hear everything I just said. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah, and this is only the start of it. Really, this is just us kicking the ball rolling, and we'll be doing more podcasts. I hope I can do more podcasts with you, Arabella.
Sure.
I really do. And
I've got lots more from where this came from.
yeah.
I can tell you that much for free.
And we'll have live discussions too. So look forward to that. Look forward to meeting you, any of you who's listening. So great. I feel inspired.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So lovely to chat, as ever. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.